There are thoughts you're thinking right now that feel like they're yours, but they're not. And the reason you keep looping in the same patterns in your life isn't because you don't know better. It's because your body believes a story that it's learned. And most people don't realize this. Your body responds to those thoughts like they're true. Welcome to Regulate and Rise, where regulation is the path to liberation. I'm Liana Empowers, founder of the Emancipation Frequency, and you are.
And I'm Tracy, founder, and I am the founder of Ruha Rising and a trauma conscious somatic practitioner.
And today we're talking about the stories that we tell ourselves, how they shape our identity, and I'll say how they shape your destiny until you become aware of them, and how they keep us stuck and what they're actually doing to our nervous system. So, Tracy, can you walk us through what's happening in the nervous system when someone is constantly running stressful or limiting stories in their lives?
Yes, it's almost like if you've heard the term self fulfilling prophecy, what you think, you are. So if you're telling yourself, I'm not good enough, nobody loves me, I don't deserve this, then your body is going to react to those thoughts because our mind and body are linked. So you may shut down, you may constantly be stressed out, breathing fast, pulling away from people, withdrawing, leaving situations that you really do deserve to be in, but you're telling yourself you don't. So that's going to take over and pretty much rule and control the decisions you make, what your body does, the behaviors you choose, and even your emotions. Because what we tell ourselves is what our body responds to. It's like a computer. People say you have to tell the computer what to do. Well, I don't always know what to tell the computer to do, but you got to tell the computer what to do or it doesn't compute. So if you type into a computer, you're stupid, you're not a smart computer, it's going to respond to those commands, so to speak. Just as your body, whatever you put in here into your brain computer, because that's the original computer, that's
Mhm.
what your body is going to respond to.
And isn't that why we create these stories in the first place? Because our body and our nervous system is responding to like a stimulus that we
Mm-hmm.
encounter in our daily life. And I know specifically from childhood, you know, how
Mm-hmm.
something as that we think would be minute looking back on it, but as a child, that particular circumstance could be huge, and it creates a program, a computer
Mm-hmm.
program in their mind, like for the rest of their lives, as
Mm-hmm.
long as they're running on that same story. Uh, what's your take on
Yeah.
that? Why do we create these stories in the first place?
Because what we take in our environment, what we learn from the people around us, whether it's the adults at school, the kids at school, how we're treated, how we're raised, all of that dictates what our story is. Unless you're shown something different as you're growing up, as you're adulting, even, unless you see something different, you don't know anything else. So your mind is going to keep telling this story. And when things come into your environment and your experiences that tell a different story, you're not going to believe that because you're not familiar with that. So you're going to cling to your old ways, your old stories, whether they're positive or negative, unless you can find a way to disprove those stories. because we learn who we are through others, through the environment, through reactions from others, how they respond to us. You're good, you're bad, you're ugly, you're pretty, whatever the case is, you're smart, you're stupid. These are the stories we take with us, whatever you're fed into your psyche, your brain, your experience.
So basically, it's kind of like the brain, our brain is trying to protect us. Um,
Hmm.
is it your ego that the brain is trying to protect? Uh, do you know what I mean? Correct?
Hmm.
Is it an
You're trying to
egocentric?
stay whole.
Yeah.
Yes. Hmm.
Okay.
So we don't want to fall apart. We don't want to believe we're not good enough. Our ego is our, that's our basis of understanding ourselves. So we'll always protect ourselves. Stories protect ourselves. Stories keep us in the familiar so we don't fall apart, so we don't panic. Even if it's not an uplifting story, if it's something that's going to keep you stuck in a loop of, I'm stupid, I'm bad, nobody believes in me, I'm not worth anything, that's all you know.
Hmm.
So your ego needs to be protected. So your nervous system may shut down, have you withdraw from situations. It could even have you overreact, like in be in flight mode, which is, it's not just running away literally. It's, I'm freaking out, I'm panicking, I'm going to scream at you, I'm going to cuss you out, because that's my need to protect my identity, my core identity. So we're talking about our core identities, kind of.
Yeah. Yes, because all those stories become part of your core beliefs. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to just share a little bit from my book, Grown Sexy Wisdom, because in this book, I talk about recognizing the power of your story. And it's pretty
Mm-hmm.
profound because that can either be empowering or disempowering. So, in this particular section called Recognize the Power of Your Story, I talk about reflect on what you tell others about your life in your conversations with friends or when forging relationships with others. How does your story go? Is it ego driven with a parade of masks that you wear to impress others because inside you're suffering? Or is it filled with talk of how you've been a victim of rotten employers, dysfunctional parents, and selfish significant others? In other words, your story is a powerful set of thoughts, habits, beliefs, attitudes, and all those affiliated emotions, traumas, and dramas that we
Mm-hmm.
experience in life. And they form your view of yourself and of life. It's a system of living that you adopt for yourself that is deeply entrenched in what you learned in your environment, past and present. I mean, there's a whole host of things that cause us to create our stories. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how do these stories actually keep us stuck?
They keep us stuck because as long as you're getting feedback from the environment that feeds what you think is your truth, your story, if it's a negative one, you're going to constantly believe that. You're going to constantly stay in that state of, this is my story. There is no other way. You don't know any other way unless you learn it. So your body, your mind stuck in whatever your story is. Um, I, I can give an example of how it could go one way or how it could go the other. And I'll use the personal example of my son, who again didn't give me permission to talk about him, but I am because I'm his mother. But
Right on.
so he was, and I'm proud of him, he was a student who had special need learning needs, had the IEP in school. And that does not mean you're stupid. But many teachers parents, other kids give you the message you're stupid because you're in special education. So there would be times there were tears, upset, and I heard some of the things the teacher said and many times had to correct them. If he hadn't had that other story being told to him, you are smart, you just learn a different way. And if I hadn't supported his story of learning and exploring his environment with different activities, different interests, he would have been stuck in that story that the schools were telling him, you're stupid, or getting bullied by the kids, you're dumb. You're not going to amount to anything. These are all the things he heard. So imagine if he got stuck in that story, he wouldn't be doing anything. But he had the opposite from both of his parents, actually. You're not stupid. And I would go into the school and stand up for him and say, you need to look at his story a different way. You need to see him in a different light. You need to see the possibility and teach him that possibility, not think you can't learn, which is what the schools often do because you have an IEP. We're just going to stick you in the corner. No, you're not. You're going to tell him a different story. So
Yeah.
I made sure the teachers told the different stories, the administrators, because I was not going to let him be stuck in that cycle of doom, basically. Prison to pipeline, doom. You're not
Yeah.
going to amount to anything. You can't learn. Not true. Brilliant. Has his own business, about to start another one. Brilliant. But imagine again, had I not given him that other story to take away the impact of the false one that they
Yeah.
wanted him to believe, he would have been stuck in that negative loop. Now he's stuck in a positive one. I can do this. I'm going to keep growing.
Absolutely. And conversely, I just had a conversation with my daughter yesterday, my youngest daughter, and she was telling me about something that I did when she was growing up, which I can relate to because, oh my God, I have grown so much since the time I parented my children. And she was telling me how I viewed her as the responsible one because my nervous system that I've learned, oh my gosh, in depth, has was actually in overwhelmed, overloaded, and all the
Mhm.
other adjectives to describe that at that time. And it was so difficult to process all that because my oldest daughter was going through some things that I felt like I needed to pay more attention to her and deal with what I was dealing with her. And then that affected my youngest daughter because she said that the response, me seeing her as being more responsible, made her take on additional uh, emotional, uh, different things in her life that she felt like she had to measure up and she had to be that all the time. So it put a lot of pressure on her. And
Mhm.
I broke out into tears when she told me that. And I asked her to forgive me because I didn't know at the time. I was just dealing and responding to things in real time. And I had no idea that it affected her like that. But I thank God that we have the relationship now that we have where we can
Mhm.
talk about those things and resolve some of those things because they certainly aren't done intentionally.
Mhm.
So that's those are eye openers, and those
Mhm.
become part of our children's stories,
Mhm.
but we have to be open and we have to grow through our own process and become aware, as we say all the time here, so that we can help them and help them ascend and grow and expand and be the best that they can be because I think we're all healing from something.
And your story is always being told, and unless you give up, your story is always being told. You can always erase, you can, well, so to speak, you can always redo, rebuild, relearn. You can write a new chapter.
Yes.
The other chapters are written. They are there, they happen. You really can't erase those, but you can write new chapters as you grow.
Right. And the thing I think is most profound is the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. That
Mm-hmm.
involves our self-talk, and you know, I I tell people I over the years have beat myself to a bloody pulp. I don't need anyone else to do it for me, because the story I was telling
Mm-hmm.
myself about myself, I discovered over time was not true. And my life has been a series of evolving and expanding and growing to the
Mm-hmm.
point where that old story doesn't even feel natural anymore. It feels like something that needs to fall away. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're the only one that can do that for yourself, because it involves
Right.
choices. It involves getting down and dirty honest with yourself in order
Mm-hmm.
to shift the story. And I see how your story, is part of a dysregulated nervous system, because there's so many things tied into that we could talk all day about. But it's important, I think, that we bring this to the forefront, because these are especially now, when the world is going through all this change, and expansion,
Mm-hmm.
and people don't know how to cope. And it's like all these things, your own story, the things you're telling yourself, the things you're seeing outside yourself, all that stuff, becomes overwhelming. And it's important to
Mm-hmm.
know how to regulate in this day and time.
Mm-hmm. And if if you think about parts of a story that you learned in school, you got the main character, that's you. You got a protagonist, antagonist, problems that you got to solve. So in your story, just remember there's you, there are going to be problems. You can pick them apart, ask questions, and go, what do I want to change? Do I want to change? What am I up against? What are my barriers? So I just thought I'd throw that in there because we're talking about stories.
Yes. And for a lot of people, I remember my a good friend of mine who was a raw vegan coach down in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
This stuck with me to this day. She said that in her line of work, people would rather die than change the way
Mm-hmm.
that they eat, because they're so used to it, and it becomes habitual, and it just goes on this continuous loop. And just like the stories we tell ourselves, it's a continuous loop. It's like a never ending movie
Mm-hmm.
until you break the cycle, till you cut the film and you're ready to edit it, and you step in to the power of your story. You recognize what it's been doing to you, your entire life. And it's
Mm-hmm.
important to have those self-aware moments,
Mm-hmm.
because nothing's going to shift until you're real with yourself.
Something that stuck with me is spiritual. I'm a very spiritual person. And I just remember one sermon that has always stuck with me was God's going to keep sending you those same problems in your life until you respond to them the way you're supposed to. I'm not preaching, I'm just saying until, we start noticing I'm stuck in this loop. I don't like this situation. You have to, as Liana said, get down and dirty with yourself and say, well, what am I doing? What do I keep doing? Why do I keep doing that? Where'd that part of my story come from? And then how can I respond differently and react differently so I can get out of this loop and onto the track that I want to go on, not just a loop, going on my track forward in my future.
How can we begin to shift those things? That's the very important topic. you know
Mm-hmm.
you were going in that direction. And I know one of the things I mentioned in my book is to change your self-talk, and
Mhm.
whatever that takes. Sometimes we can simplify these things, and they're either going to work or they're not going to work. You're the one that has to put in the work. That's like a
Mhm.
disclaimer on my coaching programs. you know
Mhm.
Nothing's guaranteed. It's up to you to
Right.
shift it, to
Mhm.
change it, to become aware of it. uh, so, like, changing your self-talk, how would you suggest that people
Mhm.
do that's part of nervous system regulation as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I just keep thinking about therapy, the therapy world, which I am in and a part of. There are different ways to coach people through changing your story. You got to first be aware of it, of your self talk. What am I saying to myself? Why? What is it making me feel like? You got to pick that apart and look at the why, who, what, when, where. You got to be able to get in touch with what is my core belief and why do I feel that way? Why do I keep making these decisions? So, part of it is starting to tell yourself that you can tell yourself the opposite of what you're saying. I'm the dumbest person in the world. I'm the smartest person in the world. I'm ugly. I'm pretty. It can be as still have to connect it to what is deep down inside of me that I need to bring out that's making me continue to say this. You can start telling yourself, I want to change. That's a positive because it means I don't want to stay stuck. I don't like how my life is going. If that's what you're saying to yourself in your head, positive talk would be, this went well for me today. You got to find little glimmers, little hopes, little changes, little things that you did differently than yesterday, than an hour ago. You got to just start being aware of those. Sometimes it takes a coach to help you through that. And then you
Exactly.
realize, hey, I'm different. Like one of my people that I've been seeing for over a year, people said, you guys are having fun in there. You're laughing. And I said, because we're in that place. She finally, pretty much got in touch with her story, told the parts that were ugly that I want to change. I don't like this. And she's in that place where she's like, hey, I'm in a positive place. They're messing up my story. I can't let that into my book. So
Yes.
it takes time. So my point is, it takes time, and sometimes it takes coaching.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that's been true for me of late is something that just came to uh, my awareness recently is be your own evidence. You were talking about how, writing different things down, uh,
Hmm.
to remind yourself of, you know, what you're saying to yourself and how to shift that. But being your own evidence is actually looking at the things that you're doing every day, the small win. I'm a
Hmm.
I have a huge personality, and my entire life has been run by huge. I'm a visionary, and so everything I think is big, and sometimes I have to pull myself back from the bigness, and
Hmm.
instead of overwhelming myself, which I've had a habit of doing, I have to come in little bite-sized nuggets, little
Hmm.
pieces of
Hmm.
how do I start this? And then, yes, let me look at my day. Let me see the evidence of what I did today, what I created, what I
Mm-hmm.
actually accomplished, instead of thinking, oh my God, I didn't get anything done, and, taking myself through the ringer for that.
Mm-hmm.
It is, what am I doing? What am I doing to be my own evidence? How did I accomplish this today? And
Mm-hmm.
I got this done. And it's almost like being grateful. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
gratitude practice. And you're looking at even the teeniest of things.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that young man holding the door open for me. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's a blessing. That's something that comes into your life to show you that you're worthy of having someone hold the door open for you. You know, let's we need to look for that evidence in our lives
Mm-hmm.
every day. And yes, write it down, because writing helps jar something else in your brain, and it keeps
Mm-hmm.
memory. We don't
Right.
write anymore. We're always click clacking on the keys of our computer. But actually using our brain to write that down, you know, is a whole different kind of click. It clicks
Mm-hmm.
into your nervous system. And
It's
it's,
grounding. Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other practices that will help us tune in more to ourselves? Um, not just the self talk, that's important, but
Mm-hmm.
like in a breathing practice or some type of meditation. What do you do with your clients in these situations?
Many different things. It depends on the person. So, for example, I use movement. Sometimes they don't do it with me, but I will still do it, and they'll get what I'm trying to teach them, and they will have their aha moment. Oh yeah, like shrinking. If you find yourself saying nothing but negative, you might not want to write it down. You might not have a pen or pencil handy. You might not have your phone to jot something in. Just and if you're around people and you can't do this where they'll think, "Oh, she's weird. What in the world is she doing?" You can just visualize, I'm shrinking. Just visualize, what does that feel like? Shrinking. So if you do that right now, I'm shrinking. I'm going into myself. I'm holding my breath. My body's shutting down. Or like the lady today said, "Ooh, I just noticed I'm doing all this tension and rubbing myself when I start talking about all these stressful things, what I want to get away from, what I thought changed, but I'm still working, blah, 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 blah." That the realization of what your body is doing. So
Hmm.
just pausing, taking, it doesn't even have to be a deep breath. You can just pause and notice your breathing. Is it getting stuck somewhere? Is it flowing? Is it caught, am I choking up? Am I, does my stomach hurt because all this tension's there? Are my feet cramped up? Are my shoulders just like a brick? Just notice, where's your breathing getting stuck? Where's your tension? As you breathe, you'll notice where your tension is if you don't know where it is off the top of your head. Your breath will tell you, ooh, yeah, we need to get something flowing through there. So, breathing, shrinking, but also doing the opposite. If you're doing that visualization on shrinking, and I'm closing in on myself, I'm shutting down, nobody believes me, nobody believes I'm worth this, I don't think I am. Imagine yourself doing the opposite, from shrinking to as big as you can. Take up all that space around you. Breathe it in. What is that like? Notice simply, what does that feel like? Because that can tell you, I don't have to stay stuck literally like this. I can expand myself. I can grow. I can take up all that space. So, visualization, breathing, movement, whatever you're comfortable doing. The journaling, writing things down really helps because that is grounding. It is grounding.
Hmm.
because you're not just lightly typing on or using just this. You are grounding yourself. And as Liana said, that's where that mind body connection comes in. So, finding that mind body connection through movement, through breath, through awareness.
And I think it's really important to separate. Those things help you separate from the story that is going on in your body. And it is just like so important for people to realize you can separate from that story
Mm-hmm.
by doing the physical things, that allow you to do that, by doing the grounding, because that opens up your body, mind, spirit to be able to
Mm-hmm.
see what it is you're doing, or that you've been doing to yourself. And the key is,
Mm-hmm.
again, not beating yourself to a bloody pulp like I used to do, but
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that it's okay. Just like I told my daughter, I'm sorry, I did not know at the time, I was not aware that part of my story was that I was overwhelmed. And I had so much I was a victim. I was in victim mode at that time. I was, telling myself that I was that, until that story started to separate from the fabric of who I was becoming. And that's,
Mm-hmm.
one of the points I want to reiterate to people is that you can change your story. And it doesn't matter, because sometimes our story is what someone else says it is. Like you said, the teachers and
Mm-hmm.
the kids and everything were programming your son. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
say sometimes that our families, the teachers,
Mm-hmm.
clergy, especially our families, sometimes they're the biggest dream killers and naysayers on the planet. And that's a hard thing to separate from, because your story is intertwined in that whole ball of wax.
Mm-hmm.
What say you to that,
And
Miss Tracy?
and they're closest. Your family is sometimes not always the closest to you, so they want to protect you. They don't want to see you fail. So sometimes they want the best for us, but it comes out not in the way that affects us in the most positive manner. It comes out as overprotection, or you can't do that, or, you know, out of their fear and their anxiety
Hmm.
and what they learned generationally. Uh,
It's a pretty big ball of yarn that gets bigger and bigger. It can
right.
get bigger and bigger
And
as we go along.
don't bring out the cat to the cat.
Oh
But
my
but
gosh,
you know, as your ball of yarn gets bigger, it gets more tempting to keep it going and to, ignore it. It just gets bigger and bigger.
that's
And the
right.
other thing about your story, you don't have to throw away what happened to you. It happened. It
Hmm.
is a part of your story. And it doesn't mean you're bad because it happened. It just
Exactly.
happened. And again, you did what you could in that moment with what you knew at that time. You don't have the knowledge that you have now, so you can't go back and change it.
That's
Just
right.
accept it. Say, thank you for teaching me whatever the lesson was. I'm grateful. You can be grateful for your bad experiences. They teach you something.
Amen.
They can
Amen to
teach you
that.
compassion toward yourself, toward others, which eventually leads to success, however you define that. But you don't have to throw away your story and act like it never happened. It is a part of you and it helped you grow, and it can help remind you of where you don't want to go back to, like a reference point.
Yes.
So,
I remember specifically the word suffering. And I remember when I realized that I wasn't suffering, it was what I felt like I was experiencing suffering in my body. But that was the greatest transformation for me because it is a part of life and it is how you change. Sometimes those experiences are brought to you so that you can shift your perspective and move in to what it is, to your purpose, to your passion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a everything comes to teach you something.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even this podcast here, we're teaching people about how to overcome your story and shift and change that story so that you can move forward in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we, I know for me, I want no regrets in my life. And the only way I can do that is continuously continue to change my story every day into a
Mm-hmm.
more empowering one.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
so,
mm-hmm.
oh, go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say the other part of our story, it makes us who we are. It helps you see where you need to go, where you want to go, and again, it's not a bad thing. So,
So the key is not to fight the story. The
right.
key is to regulate your system and
Mm-hmm.
not be so reactive to the things that are going on in your daily life, but to actually be able to regulate, breathe. Even
Mm-hmm.
if it's not in the moment, you can do it later, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when you're thinking about it because your body is still in hypervigilant mode. It's to be able to shift that feeling, those habitual stress points in your body, like the
Mm-hmm.
tightening of the chest, the fists. I used to walk around holding my fists like this all the time when I'm walking or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's me being a tight ass. But, you know, when I realized it, like my hands were hurting, and I'm like, why am I clenching my fist? But until you become aware of those things,
Mm-hmm.
it's a habitual thing that you've
Mm-hmm.
developed throughout life.
It is.
So, what if the story in your head isn't your truth? And what if it's just something that your system learned to
Mm-hmm.
cope with your everyday life? It's not who you are, it's what you practiced.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not stuck, your system is just overwhelmed. So, the moment you stop believing every thought in your head is the moment you start taking your power back.
Mm-hmm.
You are not your thoughts. You are the only one that can change them.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're ready to get out of survival mode and actually rebuild your life and your income from a grounded place,
Mm-hmm.
I'm I've got the Sovereign Income Reset, which starts June 1st. I'm taking 10 women into my initial cohort. Regulate your nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
activate your income, and restore your identity. Because sometimes we lose our identity that's tied to our income when we lose
Mm-hmm.
that. So that program is for 10 women. You can get in right now
Mm-hmm.
and just visit the link in the description. And for Tracy's support in nervous system regulation, healing, and if you want to learn more how to do that, I recommend her highly. You can go to her website Ruha Rising, and her
Mm-hmm.
link is in the description as well. And please, even if this is not something that you think is useful to you, share this with someone that I know someone in our lives this can help. So it helps the algorithm, it'll help our channel grow, it'll help us get our message out there. If you subscribe, if you like, if you share and comment, we would
Mm-hmm.
be more than grateful. So, Tracy, take us home and give us some words of wisdom for this week.
Words of wisdom. Imagine if you've never been through anything at all and your life was always, oh, everything's fine. The world would be boring without your story. Your story helps you grow. And as you grow through your story and learn yourself and what your power is, what your truth is, you can bring that to other people. You can bring that energy that used to be stuck out to other people, because we're all meant to be here with other people. Otherwise, we would be the only ones here. Um, you're born, you start out in your mother's womb, you're connected. You are meant for connection from the moment of conception. So share what you learned through your story so other people can thrive and succeed and be grateful.
Powerful words. Thank you, Tracy. And join us next week for more Regulate and Rise. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.